I've been wanting to build a proper desktop arcade machine for a while now, and I finally got round to making one. It's powered by a Raspberry Pi, has a 10-inch touchscreen, real arcade controls, and a custom-designed laser-cut enclosure with printed graphics. So let me show you how I built it. There are a lot of Raspberry Pi projects that benefit from the extra performance of a Pi 5, but this isn't one of them. RetroPie still isn't officially available on the Pi 5, and even if it was, a Pi 4 already has more than enough performance to play most retro games anyway. And with the prices of Pis at the moment, saving some money and getting a Pi 4 is an easy choice. I actually landed up going with a 2GB Pi for this project. The Pi conveniently mounts onto the back of a 10-inch touchscreen from Sunfounder. I quite like this display because it already includes a built-in 5V 5A power supply for the Pi. That means one short USB-C cable powers the Pi directly from the display, so there's no need for multiple power supplies or any extra wiring inside the enclosure. To keep the Pi cool, I've added a small stick-on heatsink together with a fan mounted to the acrylic cover above it. I'm not yet sure if the fan is necessary, but if I need it then at least it's there. And this is PWM controlled, so it can be turned off if it needs to be. The no arcade machine is complete without proper controls. Rather than a handheld controller, I got this complete USB joystick and button kit from AliExpress, and it was around $15. For the price I wasn't expecting much, but I was pleasantly surprised. The joystick feels reasonably well built, and the buttons have a satisfying click. It's also completely plug and play with RetroPie. It didn't need any drivers or configuration, I just plugged it in and it worked. The display originally came with its own speakers that receive audio over HDMI. Unfortunately, I've managed to lose them in moving over to a new workshop, so instead I sacrificed a tiny USB speaker set and I removed the internals for this build. This took a lot more time than I expected to get it to work. Because the display allows for HDMI audio, RetroPie kept defaulting to sending audio to the display instead of to my speakers. After a bit of experimenting with ELSA and RetroPie's audio settings, I managed to convince it to use the correct output. Now that I have the hardware sorted, I need something to install it in. I designed the cabinet as a flat pattern in Inkscape to be laser cut from some 3mm plywood. I like the retro look and feel that a wooden cabinet brings. For the controls layout, I went with 6 gameplay buttons alongside the joystick. Like with a handheld controller, this gives me everything I'd normally need for Super Nintendo games, and is still usable for classic arcade games too. Above those, I added a dedicated hotkey start and select button. I then added some decals, button labels, and a retro pattern to the side panels. The enclosure itself uses interlocking tabs on each panel, and these automatically align all of the parts during assembly to make the whole cabinet easier to build. I also designed removable access panels for the back and the underside, so if I ever need to replace a component, troubleshoot something, or upgrade the hardware, I don't have to take the whole cabinet apart. To make up the enclosure parts, I'm using the xTool M2. One of the things I really like about this machine is that it can both print onto and laser cut materials. So I can print the graphics directly onto the plywood first, and then swap over to the laser head, and then cut every part out using the same machine. Everything lines up perfectly because the material never has to move. The side panels came out really well, and I love the Pac-Man graphics on the front panel. After an evening of printing and laser cutting, the panels are all complete. Assembly is pretty straightforward, and I used some wood glue for all of the joints. The interlocking tabs line everything up, so we can add some wood glue to the edges, slot the pieces together, and then hold them together with some masking tape until the glue dries. As with most of my flat pattern designs, it didn't all work out perfectly on the first go. I switched the back and bottom panels around when making the port cutouts and labels, so my Ethernet and power port were underneath the console. So I had to remake one small panel for the bottom and print and make the cutouts on the back panel. With the enclosure finished, we can now start installing all of the hardware. Let's start with the speakers, which are stuck into place on the inside with some double-sided tape. The joystick's secured with 4 screws through the control panel surface, and each button just clips into place with its own built-in retaining clips. For some reason, the hotkey is a smaller button, which I only noticed when I tried to install it. So I had to make up a little adapter ring to hold it in place too. To make powering the system easier, I built a short extension cable for the display's power connector. This brings it out to the rear of the enclosure. So the whole arcade will get power from a single connector on the back. I also added an Ethernet extension because having a network connection on the back makes it much quicker to copy ROMs and to update the system whenever I need to. Next, I flashed RetroPie to a microSD card using Raspberry Pi Imager. We can then put the card into the Pi, and the display assembly then mounts onto an internal support bracket, which positions it the right distance behind the front opening. Lastly, let's close up the cover panels with some M3 screws and put some rubber feet onto it. And that's the arcade complete. Let's boot it up, and you can then install your ROMs. Just make sure you only use ROMs that you're legally allowed to use, and comply with the copyright laws in your country. I now have a fully self-contained desktop arcade machine that doesn't take up much more space than a computer. It can run a huge number of classic arcade and console games, and because it's based on a Raspberry Pi, it's also easy to customize, repair, and upgrade in the future. I'm really happy with how this project turned out. It's compact, but still has a nostalgic arcade feel to play. If you'd like to build one yourself, I'll put links to the files and all of the hardware I used in the video description. I'll also leave links to the xTool M2 and the Safety Pro AP2 air purifier that I used to make it. The print and cut workflow on the M2 really steps laser cut projects up to the next level, and the air purifier allows you to work in small spaces like my workshop without having to vent out of a window. If you enjoyed this build, don't forget to subscribe because I've got more Raspberry Pi and laser cutting projects coming soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.